6:30.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. Welcome into the studio. If you happen to be listening live on Facebook, you can ask your questions live during the show. Anytime. We will tend to answer those questions during the commercial break, but would love to get interaction. So if there's something that we're covering today that you've got a hot burning question on and you don't want to wait to send it to me as an email afterwards, feel free to post those over as comments over on the Facebook live stream. In between, you can actually share that live stream. You can go back and find all of the other live streams over on my Facebook page and watch them all. We've also have set up a new YouTube channel, so it's under the Innovators Network. We announced the network back a couple of months ago. It's a group of us who are all innovators, been in the innovation game for quite some time. We're kind of coming all together, both with our radio shows, myself, Kim McNicholas, who's been on the show. I've lost track how many times Kim has been on the show. But her show over on KDOW is now part of the Innovators Network. And we're now posting all of the shows over there at the Innovators Network over on YouTube. Plus, you can get either one of our shows, and we'll be adding more shows. We got more shows coming up. We'll be adding those all over onto iTunes. You can also get Kim's show. It's relatively new to iTunes, so you want to hop on over. You can catch Kim McNicholas, her show, which is Kim McNicholas on Innovation, and just search for that either on iTunes or Google Play, Android, anywhere you normally get all of your podcast feeds. So let's get into today's topic. Today's topic, and I'm having a little technical glitch here. Yes, I am. Well, this will be good. This is going to be, this is a test to see how well I do at covering content when you have a tech failure in the studio. So today's topic is on how to ask questions to find killer ideas. It's one of the number one questions I get from listeners. My whole methodology is on questions. You know, I've talked about my killer question card deck, which is many of you have been asking for over a decade to finally publish it. Now that's available. It's basically the premise of the book. But my methodology is really around leveraging the power of questions. And what do I mean by the power of questions? Questions have a unique characteristic in the fact that you cannot not answer them. When I pose you a question, you feel like you have to answer it. You have to, your brain kicks in, you're trying to calculate an answer or come up with an answer when questions are posed to you. It's almost involuntary in the process. So for instance, sitting right here, I'm going to ask you a question. What is half of 13? Now, you've calculated the answer. Now you're back listening to me. Now, if I asked you, if we were sitting here across from each other and I asked you what was half of 13, you would say 6.5. I go, woohoo. Given a math test, I'd give you an A. If I'm giving you an innovation test, it's more like it's a C-. Why? Because it's the first obvious answer. It's the obvious answer because you're treating it like a test. What's half of 13? 6.5. Give the answer, get the A, move on. In the case of innovation, though, you want to look beyond the obvious. You want to look beyond kind of that first obvious answer and find those next answers. Why? Because guess what? Your competitors stop at that first answer. They stop at that first obvious answer. So, and that's 95% of your competitors. So by simply you looking beyond that obvious answer, then you are actually potentially way ahead of your competitors. So if I'd asked you what is half of 13, and I had spelled it all out, THIRTEN, then we could split it vertically, and you get THIRT and split it half and half, but you split the word literally. If I wrote it as Roman numeral 13 and I had you split it vertically, what's the answer? 11 and 2. You could go 6 or 7 on rounding. You can do, there's 13 cards in a deck of cards. The number 5 card is the middle. There's all kinds of ways you can think about what is half of 13. And in fact, there's a college professor out there who's taken this out of my book and uses it in her classroom. And the most that any one classroom has come up with is 31 different answers to the question, what is half of 13? Now, there are good questions and there are bad questions. And what we're trying to focus on here today is how do you use questions to find that new idea? How do you use questions to find that new idea that can then allow you to come up with that new product, that new service, that new innovation that's a game changer? And it's through questions and getting people to get that subconscious to kind of halt a little bit and look at the problem or look at the opportunity completely differently. So the question I've got for you is, if I go back to what is half of 13, and there's 31 is the most that any one person has done, how many different ways could you answer the question, what is half of 13? Again, good questions, bad questions. This one is an okay question, half of 13, because it's got a defined answer, right? There are questions that are kind of what I call leading questions. Leading questions are, you may think you're asking a question or you're encouraging a dialogue with somebody, but the wording of the question leads the person to the answer, which means you've already got some form of bias or preconceived answer. What you want to do is you want to create questions that causes people to look at things in a completely radical, different way. Something that is totally unexpected. Now, there's also the Socratic method of asking questions, right? So Socrates would actually teach through this process of questions. So there's this series of Socratic approach to asking questions where I would, ask you a question and then I would ask you another question to kind of clarify your answer, and then I would ask you another question to clarify that answer. Kind of a much more elaborate, more well thought out version than the traditional kind of innovation advice you hear from innovation consultants, which is for any idea, ask, or any proposed idea, ask 5 whys. So ask why 5 times. So customer doesn't like that. Well, why? Well, they don't like it because they don't like the color. Well, why? Because the color reminds them of, and you get down through this whole chain of questions. So the 5 whys is one way to do it. Socratic method's a little bit more. What Socrates was trying to do in the Socratic method was to try to get the student to kind of self-reflect and actually make sure that they'd really thought through their answer, really thought through and could defend their opinion, their direction, their idea that they were expounding on. And so there's a variety of different ways to use questions, but the way to create really good questions are questions that really cause you to kind of step back and go, whoa, I got to think differently about this thing. You're asking me a question that I had never considered before, or it's a question that I don't have ready access to the answer. I have to go off and do some research, or I have to go talk to some other people, or I have to go observe something in order to get the answer back. The best kind of questions are those that are really kind of eye-opening in such a way that they cause you to kind of step back, your eyes get really big, and you go, holy smokes, I hadn't even thought about that. Let me see what ideas I can come up with based on that question. So there's lots of questions that are out there. I've got, you can buy the deck, the 40 of them are in the book. I've talked literally about hundreds of them in previous shows, so you can go back and dig through the Killer Innovations archive at killerinnovations.com and go through all of those questions. What I would encourage you to do is start just coming up with your own questions and take other people's questions, find them in the archive on Killer Innovations, go on to, there's lots of really good posts in Pinterest or Flipboard. go search on Google about questions, and you'll come up with a complete, set of questions. Test them out. Test them out on yourself. Test them out onto others, and see where see if they cause you or your team that you're trying to generate ideas from to cause you to take a look at something in a unique and different way. So from that standpoint, you can go do it that way. Now, what I'm going to share with you with the rest of the show today is a series of set of questions and walk you through these particular questions as examples of really good questions. So you are going to stay tuned. We're going to walk through this through the rest of this show. We're going to take a step away. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation on how to use questions to find that next great idea. We'll be right back. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. Before we hop back into this segment, I just need to give a little thank you to one of our sponsors today, which is Zoom. Zoom is a video collaboration technology. If you haven't tried it, you need to go try it. We use it when we have guests in the studio, and in fact, we are actually streaming today over on Zoom, so you can always go over to Zoom and find it out. If you want to check it out, you can go to killinnovations.com/live, click on the Zoom button, and you can actually watch the show live via Zoom, so you can get a feel for the quality of what is it like. We've set it up with Zoom for you to be able to get a free account if you're a listener here of the show, so just go to killinnovations.com/Zoom. You'll get a free account that allows you to hold a video collaboration meeting with up to 50, that's right, 50 participants. So check it out, killinnovations.com. I use it every day. I use it here in the studio, but I also use it in my day job as a CEO. Our entire organization is Zoom, and we did this long before Zoom ever became a sponsor of the show. So check it out. Best thing out there. You'll love it. Everybody does. So let's continue on with our conversation about how to use questions to develop those new ideas. So if you're starting down, you got a blank sheet of paper, your boss says, hey, I want a new product or service idea. Where do you start? And all I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what I do, right? You can do something differently, but this is exactly what I do. The first thing that I start off with is I start challenging my assumptions. And what is it that I mean by challenging my assumptions? There's assumptions that just kind of rattle around in our head. So there's two questions that I ask. What are the basic assumptions under which my industry operates? And then second, what are the basic assumptions under which my company operates? So why are these two questions important? They're important because they're causing you to kind of take a pause and look at all of kind of the built-in rules around your industry or your company, right? So in my case, when I was CTO at HP, what were some of the basic assumptions, such as, the big selling season is end of year holiday season. So kind of think November through the end of the calendar year is the big selling season. First quarter, calendar quarter of the year is always the slowest quarter, least amount of sales. Blah, 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 right? And those were kind of industry assumptions for laptops and PCs. Everybody kind of got caught into the same trend, particularly if you were heavily focused on the consumer. And those same assumptions actually apply to the company. So what we do is we would actually list out all of these kind of unwritten rules, assumptions, right? Get them down on a piece of paper. Then the question is what do you do? What you do is you ask yourself, what if the opposite were true? So list out all these things, and then ask if the opposite were true. So, biggest selling season for the laptop business is end of calendar year, right? Kind of an assumption. You may say, well, of course, it's the holiday season, everybody buys, right? In manufacturing, that having those peaky times of year is just a huge problem to get everything through the factories, get it built up in time. Is there a way to kind of smooth it out? That was the challenge. Could we make that not, meaning that wasn't the biggest season, but just one of many seasons, right? So what did HP do? HP went off and focused on creating an entirely new season of selling. What is now referred to as dads and grads. So this is Father's Day, graduation time frame. Thinking of technology as the gift for the dads and grad season, right? So give your dad, some new piece of technology, having son or daughter graduating from high school, needing a new laptop, or a new student going into high school, needing a new device to get ready for school season. Congratulations on doing great in school, whatever it is, right? So in the case of this, we looked at what was a basic assumption, and literally over 3 years of just constantly pounding on this, created an entirely new selling season that actually started to smooth it out. End of year still pretty big. We didn't solve completely that problem, but it did turn into this smoothing out of the manufacturing process, which then in turn became really a great additional selling season, which allowed us to smooth out manufacturing, smooth out all the challenges, right? So the question you've got is under what basic assumptions does your industry operate under? List them all out. What are the basic assumptions of which your company operates, right? And then challenge yourself, what if the opposite were true for each of those assumptions? And that'll be a good sparking point. You may not come up with like a fully formed, idea, but what you will come up with is potentially an area to start searching where there might be something interesting like, hey, how do we get out of that end of year selling season challenge where, everybody's competing to get product through, the factories all at the same time and trying to ship them over by boat to Europe or the US or wherever for sales, whatever. And you got to plan so far ahead. Is there a better way to do that? We took that challenge on 3 years. Now it wasn't even my team. It was somebody else completely over in a different part of HP in the sales and marketing that innovated this idea around dads and grads. Huge success. Great people there. They did a phenomenal job on looking at how do you solve this and challenging themselves to think about what if the opposite were true. The next question I would ask myself, though, if I'm sitting at a blank piece of paper and my boss is saying come up with a new product or service, I would ask myself, what external jolts have the potential to significantly impact my industry, right? Think about retail. Today, if you read the news, a lot of retail stores are going bankrupt. Why? Because more and more consumers are buying things from Amazon or other online stores or from alternative places or from the big box retailers like here in the US, be Walmart or Costco or Sam's Club, whatever. Now, what you really need to do is be a retailer to ask that question, 5 years ago. What would be that external jolt? What would keep customers from buying product from you? And so from that standpoint, this is an important question. It's one of the hardest ones to answer because you got to think about far enough out into the future where it makes sense. Now, these are kind of preface questions. What I would go into then is I go into the ideation session and start asking, this is where I'm going to actually generate ideas. And the way I think about generating ideas is really into 3 categories: the who, what, and how. The who is the customer. Who is it that's going to get value from whatever your idea is, right? So how do you think differently about your customer? The what, the actual product, the actual service that you're actually going to offer. So the actual shiny object. And then the how, everything that happens behind the scenes, everything that comes together, operations, how do you sell it, how do you market it, how do you do HR, those kinds of things. So we're going to take yet another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dig into this who, what, and how, and I'm going to give you actual question examples in each one to help you generate that next big idea. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm Phil McKinney. We're picking up our conversation talking about how to ask questions to find or discover that next great idea. But before we do that, I announced it last week. We're kind of doing, count this a little bit of a second announcement, but I'm very, very happy to announce that HP is joining as a sponsor for Killer Innovations. So we already have had Zoom. We've had Zoom for almost 6 months now. HP now has joined as a sponsor, and and I talked about it in the first half of the show. I retired as the CTO for Hewlett Packard back in 2011. I've been gone from HP for quite some time. I am not rejoining HP, so don't misinterpret that. But when we built the studio, the team that actually designed and built the studio chose all HP gear. HP builds great gear. Yeah, you're gonna count me as biased because I was the CTO there, but I've been gone now for 5 years, and but they still build great products. We've just are in the process of upgrading some new things that HP just released, so it's not fully in place yet, so I can't show you new gear as of yet. We'll do that at some point of an upcoming show. But I am a believer. I only take on sponsors for products I use, HP's products I use. Even the team that has no connection to HP chose HP for the equipment for building out my studio here in Colorado. Great stuff. Check it out. And we'll have more information coming up as we roll out the entire sponsorship program with HP. So just want to reach out and give a shout out to HP and say thanks for becoming part of the team here at Killer Innovations. So let's pick up the conversation. How do you ask questions to really generate ideas? Previously we talked about challenging your assumptions, challenging your thinking around jolts, things that come in from the outside that could potentially be some form of either risk or opportunity to your ideas. And in the last segment, I just got into a little bit of the who, what, and how. We're going to talk about that more specifically in this segment. So let's start it off right away with the who. The who is really talking about who is your customer. What is it that the value that they get from your idea? Here are two questions that the most popular ones that I use. They're out of the card deck. They're in the book. The number next to them actually denotes the number on the card deck. So if you've got the card deck, this tells you we're using the who question number 8 and who question number 12. And there are many more questions in that deck around specifically how to think about customers. But these are two that I really like. And I'm going to really focus on number 8. What customer segments will emerge in 5 years that don't exist today? What customer segments are going to emerge in 5 years? Right? Well, think about customer segments. How do you define your customer? Right? Now, some people will denote customer segments by age. Some of them will denote customer segments by income level, by marital status, by geography where they live, those kinds of things. But really what you're looking for is how do you identify and name segments of natural customers that will buy your product or service, right? So some of the names, I'm going to give you just some funny ones that I think are, one, I think enlightening from the standpoint of how to challenge you to think really differently, right? So for instance, what's a yuppie? Okay, come on. Young urban professional. What's a yuffie then? Young urban failure. Young urban failure is 2008, 2009, kid graduates from college, tries to go get a job, maybe finds a job, but lives way above their means, blows through all their money, and ends up living back on the couch at mom and dad's house, right? What about woofs? What's a woof? Well-off older folks. That's where all the disposable cash is in the older generation. Amount of home ownership, cash for retirement accounts, etc., are in those well-off older folks. Great segment to go after. What's a Moby or Adobe? Moby, M-O-B-Y, Adobe, D-O-B-Y. What's that? Mother older, baby younger, or daddy older, baby younger. This is this trend where we would do the, having children later in life in this process. So, Mobies, Dobies. Okay? What about, sandwichers? Sandwichers are ones where you may be, you're the parent, but you're taking care of kids and you're taking care of your parents. You're kind of the meat between the bread, right? I've done it. My parents both had severe health issues. They moved back home, and then my wife ended up having to take care of both of them until they both passed on, right? Sandwichers injects a huge amount of stress into your day-to-day life, right? And then what about Skippies? What's a Skippy? This is Faith Popcorn's probably the most famous segment. If you don't know who Faith is, go check her out. Skippies, school-age kids with income and purchasing power. This is a segment that online retailers and, for instance, grocery stores really focus in on. These are typically the 15, 16, 17-year-old girls in a home where both parents work who carry a lot of brand purchasing decisions, right? So they actually get to go in and they're doing the family shopping or running to the grocery store to pick up stuff to help mom out for dinner that night. So Skippies, and another important segment. So these are not to say these are the only segments you should think about. The challenge here is how do you think about your segments and what segments will emerge in 5 years that don't exist today, right? The one prediction I can make is that the older population is going to die off. The segments that are focused on the older population eventually go away. Your question is what's going to replace those segments? What are the emerging segments, and how do you then think about products and services to go after those segments? Okay? So the other one was how will I identify and locate customers in 5 years, right? Think about it. 5 years ago, would you be doing Facebook ads? Would you still be running classified ads and print newspapers? So when you think about the segments, number 12 is kind of a natural add-on question, was then how are you going to identify and locate those customer segments in 5 years, right? So I like these two together because I think they're kind of bookends when you think about how do you think differently about your customer and what your future customer is going to look like. So what do you do now to build products or service to serve those customers? Okay, 2 examples on who. What? This is the product or service, the shiny object thing, right? Here's 2 questions. Number 4, what features of my product create unanticipated passion? And what products could I create out of unused assets? So in this case, these 2 questions, they're radically different. I just picked them just out of, pure interest, right? What features of a product create unanticipated passion? Take Polaroid, for instance, right? So Polaroid, the instant film, for those of us in the older generation, you take it, spits the film out in the front, you watch it, and it actually develops in front of your eyes, you get the instant picture, great type of thing. Polaroid went out of business, right? Couldn't keep up, eventually went out of business. Their customers were so passionate that they created what's called the Impossible Project and actually bought the factories from Polaroid and reverse engineered to actually put instant film back into the market. That's pretty impressive. Number 10, what products could I create out of unused assets? What are the things that you throw away that you could get rid of? Or in this case, Amazon, large number of servers. They would use these servers during the holiday season. But soon as the holiday season, big shopping push was over, all this computing hardware at Amazon was sitting idle. Amazon came back and said, what are we going to use with these assets? Do we just power them down? No, they actually sold those computers for virtual usage by customers. It becomes AWS, a new service from Amazon, which is actually a big, huge profit maker from Amazon. And then the how. The how question is what are we throwing away that we assume has no value, and what do people not like about the buying experience of my product? So what are we throwing away? Zoos. What do zoos throw away as an example? Elephant poo, right? They have to get it out of the thing, they truck it away, they have to pay for disposal. What do now? They put it in a bucket, they sell it in the gift shop, and the visitors to the zoo carry it away. And then what do people not like about the buying experience of my product? You've heard me talk about this many, many times with regards to how I would do my retail kind of surveillance. So we're going to stop there. Who, what, and how. We've got one more topic we're going to cover, which is on using questions to select your best idea, the idea that's really going to be that game changer. So when we come back, we're going to talk specifically about ranking, and we'll go from there. Okay? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're continuing our conversation on how to use questions to find those great ideas. So we started out talking about getting away or being aware of assumptions and challenging yourself to think in the opposite direction. We talked about looking at jolts. We just wrapped up on ideation, generating lots of ideas around who your customer, the what your product, the how your business operates. So now you got all these great ideas. Well, now what do you do with them? You have to rank them. This is where most methodologies fall flat on their face. You get a list of 200 ideas. What the heck do you do with a list of 200 ideas? You need to rank them. So how do we rank them? We rank them by asking questions. So here are the questions that we use. The objective here is to find the best ideas for you. So take the entire list, 200, 300 of your ideas. You can go through a little bit of what I call a grouping exercise, which takes all the ideas and puts them into common overlapping groups, kind of bundling them all up. And then for each of those, ask yourself these 5 questions. Number 1, will this idea change the customer's experience or expectation? Number 2, will this idea change the competitive landscape? Or 3, will this idea change the economic structure of the industry? You need to have a strong yes for one of those 3. If you don't have a yes for one of those 3, then why are you doing it? Assuming you have really a strong positive to one of those 3, and if you have a positive to 2 or all 3, then you might have, the grand slam home run idea. Then you must ask yourself, questions number 4, question number 5. 4, do you have a contribution to make in this space? Do you have some form of expertise, capability, access to customers, something that, you're just not starting off with nothing, or you're going into such far afield from what it is you do today that it's so far out of reach as far as expertise and capabilities, then you may be struggling on that idea. And then number 5, will this idea generate sufficient margin? That 5th question is really about not trying to get into doing financial analysis. It's just like you're trying to think about what the business model will be. So what you do is you take each of those 5 questions, you score every idea across 5 questions. Maximum points for any one question is 5. So the max you can give to any one idea is 25 points. Get 8 people to do the scoring. Do it anonymously. And what you'll find is the top 2 or 3% of the ideas will come up to the top. There'll be a gap in the score, and then there's the rest of the ideas. I've done thousands of these, and it works out. It works this way. Just trust me. There's a bunch of other podcasts. I've written about this on the blog. You can just go over there and just search for ranking in the search field, and there's a lot more detail on ranking. But the objective here is going through the process today of asking these series of questions, getting to this ranking. You're going to come up with 2, 3, 4 really, really great ideas those are the ideas you should be focusing in on. The other 194, 185 ideas that are in your list, park them. Don't throw them away. Park them to the side. Come back to them at some point. But the whole objective here is how do you ask questions to discover that next great idea by going through the process that we just talked about. And really, why is this so important? This is so important because if you do better questions, you'll come up with better ideas, which generates some more impact. Better questions, not just any question. Think strategically about questions. You can use the killer questions as a starting point. You can go out and create your own questions. Use questions. Asking questions, causing yourself, but more importantly, the broader, diverse team that you're working with to look at a problem or look at an opportunity in a completely different way. That is the power of questions. So today we've covered a lot of material. I'm going to make it all available for download. So you can go over to killerinnovations.com/askquestions. That's right, killerinnovation.com/askquestions. And that will get you the PDF of everything that I've shown here on the live show, which is all those questions, all the flows, the order that you should be doing these things. And you can get that as a complete download. If you're riding in a car and you can't write this down, don't worry about it. Just go to killerinnovations.com, find today's show about asking questions, and in that I'll have a link. You can click that, and that will get you the download of today's slide. So again, killerinnovations.com/askquestions. That will get you all the material that we have covered today. The other is, as I've mentioned, the Killer Question Card Deck is available. Last week I talked about it, but people missed the comment on where do they go get it at. So here I'm being very clear. They are available for purchase at innovation.tools. Innovation.tools. It's the online store. It's a store that's put together by innovators, for designers, for creatives. There's other things over there, but that's where the card deck is available today. You can order it. You can order it worldwide. We're shipping it everywhere. So go to innovation.tools. You can find the card deck, and you can check those out. Also, support our sponsors. As I said earlier, we've added HP as now a sponsor of Killer Innovations. So support them. Go over there. Let them know. Get your free account at killerinnovations.com/Zoom. For HP, we'll have some more information. But if you go over there, if you're talking to HP, if you happen to be buying product from them already, whatever, just let them know that you heard about them here at Killer Innovations. That helps us. And their support helps me support the nonprofits that we're focused on, which is Pioneer Education Africa, building the school in Africa, and hackingautism.org. Our work in neurodiversity hiring and helping those on the autism spectrum find career opportunities. So that's the benefit of the sponsorships. Helps me with the nonprofit work that I'm keenly focused in on. So. And with that, we're going to wrap up today's show. Thank you for the time out of your busy schedule to come and take your time out and be with us. If you have any questions, drop me a note, phil@killerinnovations.com. You can find us all on social media. You can also find us over on LinkedIn. If you are a listener to the show and you want to connect on LinkedIn, feel free to send me the connect request. Let me know that you are a listener, and I'll accept. I get literally thousands of requests a week for LinkedIn. 99% of them I do not accept, but if you are a listener to the show, I will accept. So just go to LinkedIn, you can find me and send me that request. With that, we're going to wrap up today's show. Really do appreciate you taking the time out. And just so you have it, here's all the logistics to find me. And we will talk to you next week right here on Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Have a great day.
The opinions you hear on Biz Talk Radio are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of this station, Biz Talk Radio, its management, or advertisers. The information on Biz Talk Radio does not constitute a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or service. If you have any questions about Biz Talk Radio, contact us at 817-274-1609 or at biztalkradio.com. Biz Talk Radio.